Welcome, friends. Today we continue our B2 journey. Our lesson is called Expressing Suggestions and Advice, Guiding Others Politely. At B2 level, we can go beyond simple opinions. We can suggest actions, give advice, and guide others politely. This helps us in teamwork, friendships, and everyday communication. Take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, and smile gently. Let's begin. Listen carefully. Repeat after me. You should. You ought to. Why don't you? How about? It would be a good idea to. My advice is to. I recommend. If I were you, I would. These are phrases for suggestions and advice. Let's say them together slowly. Now let's make sentences. You should drink more water. Why don't you take a break? How about going for a walk? It would be a good idea to sleep early. Repeat after me slowly. Notice how each phrase shows helpful guidance. At B2 level, we can give advice politely. Examples: you ought to check your work carefully. My advice is to stay calm. I recommend reading this book. If I were you, I would talk to the teacher. Repeat after me. You ought to check your work carefully. My advice is to stay calm. I recommend reading this book. If I were you, I would talk to the teacher. Let's imagine daily life. Morning. You should eat breakfast to have energy. Afternoon. How about reviewing your notes before class? Evening. It would be a good idea to relax after work. Repeat with me. You should eat breakfast to have energy. How about reviewing your notes before class? It would be a good idea to relax after work. At B2 level, we can use more formal language. Examples: it is advisable to follow the instructions carefully. It is recommended that students submit assignments on time. It would be wise to prepare in advance. It is best to consult an expert. Repeat after me. It is advisable to follow the instructions carefully. It is recommended that students submit assignments on time. It would be wise to prepare in advance. It is best to consult an expert. Close your eyes for 1 minute. Think of advice you would give yourself today. Say softly in your mind, I guide myself with kindness. I suggest with mindfulness. I live with awareness in advice. This is both English practice and mindfulness practice, noticing advice with awareness. Today we learned our 21st B2 lesson, expressing suggestions and advice, guiding others politely. We practiced vocabulary: should, ought to, why don't you, how about, recommend, advise, everyday suggestions, polite and formal advice expressions, reflection, mindfulness in giving and receiving advice. These sentences help us speak more clearly when giving suggestions, and they remind us to live mindfully by guiding others with kindness and respect. Thank you for joining me. May your practice bring peace, clarity, and joy.